Hi everyone, can you hear me? Can you hear me, see the presentation? Hi, hello, hi. Yes, you can. That's great. A quick disclaimer. Hello from Florianopolis. Hello from Minas. A quick disclaimer. My neighbor has decided that quarantine was a fantastic time to start full house renovation. So you might hear some chainsaws. I have no idea what the person is doing. And I'm deeply sorry. I talked to him and he said, well, we have to. So I'm sorry for any extra noise from my end. Besides that, how are you folks doing? From Jaú, São Paulo. Oh, I have a friend whose parents live in Jaú. Where are you watching this from? You see, this is the chainsaw I was talking about. Is it like super loud? Porto Ferreira, Bueno Brandão, Hortolândia, Batatais, São Paulo. Oh, that's great. You can hear me clearly. Yes, I hope you don't hear the chainsaw clearly. Hi from El Salvador. That's great. All right, so shall we go? I think we're good to go, right? So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bruno Albuquerque. I'm an educational consultant at Troika, and I'm super pleased that you folks decided to spend your Wednesday with me. I profoundly value your time. I know that teachers don't get enough free time. I know it's definitely not enough free time they deserve. So thank you for spending your free time here with me. It's a privilege to be with you this afternoon. So today we're talking about learner engagement, and one thing I called the trifecta of learner engagement. Just so we can all start on the same page. What I call trifecta is the three main pillars of, hi Katarina, good afternoon. The three main pillars of learner engagement. So which are the three key things that, in my opinion, help us engage students in the classroom? This is by no means an airtight strategy. I wish I could deliver something like that, something that would work for any context, for any teacher with any kind of student, but it is not. But I believe that without these, chances of engaging learners are very slim. So let's say it's not an airtight strategy towards success, but without these, I think it gets much harder. All right. If you have, I've planned this session to last for 45 to 50 minutes. Hi, Jessica. And we're going to have like 10 minutes at the end for questions and answers. However, if you have a burning, incandescent question in your heart, type it in the chat. I'll do my best to keep an eye on the chat and answer your questions as we go. Okie dokie? Yes? From Belgium. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to hear from you. What is, in your opinion, important for learner engagement? Okay, rapport, key thing. Motivation, yes, interaction. And that's the thing, I would love a session that systematizes rapport development with students, because usually people talk about rapport as something, as an innate talent of teachers. You either have it or you don't, right? I don't like that view. I would like something more tangible on rapport. Okay, motivation, clearly. Interests and needs are met. Okay, so maybe we're talking about goals here. feeling at ease. It is meaningful. It involves enthusiasm, the desire for knowledge. Yeah, definitely. Um, this webinar is, in my opinion, it is teacher-centered. It's what can teachers do to help Wallace. Hi, Wallace. Welcome. What an honor to have Wallace here. The idea is what teachers can do to help engage students. Okay, and we're going to go through my 3 key principles. They're not mine, but they're the ones that I value the most. Okay, so today we're going to talk about context, goals, and retrials. Okay, first one being context. I find this interesting because whenever we're talking about language teaching, it's common to hear trainers and experienced teachers saying that language is context dependent, language should be taught contextualized, and all language is embedded in a context, right? I think these are 3 statements that no one, at least no one I know, disputes, but I think zeroing in on the definition of context is a bit tricky, right? So, okay, so language is context dependent. It has to be, language has to be taught in a contextualized manner, and language is embedded in context. But what is context? And Vini Nobri, if you don't know the man, do Google him, find him online on Instagram. Vini Nobri, works at Senian now. And in a conversation we had, he said that context is 3 things, that there are 3 parts of 3, let's say, shades to context. Them being purpose, people, and a place. It's easy to remember, right? PPP. That being all communication, every time we use language with a purpose, we use language with people, and it happens in a place. That means we have a goal with this interaction, there are people involved in this interaction, and the place is also relevant. And if we say that language is context dependent, it means that if you change the context, you ought to change the language. Right? Let's see how this works. For example, we're looking at context from this PPP perspective: purpose, place, people, purpose, people, and place. So for a purpose, let's say that we want to report a car crash, and we're going to report this car crash to a police officer, and we're going to do so at the police station. Think of the language you would use to carry out this interaction. It is formal language. The register is a bit more formal. You probably be using maybe narrative tenses, like maybe simple past, maybe past continuous. You're going to, it's very specific, right? You want like the times and the places, definitely, right? So you get the language you need, the register you need, and if you do some browsing through your brain, maybe reported speech, right? Definitely. If you go through your brain and you browse a bit, you will even think of fixed phrases, right? It's very descriptive, definitely, right? You'll even think of some phrases that you would use, that people would use, and maybe even the police officer would use. So some chunks, definitely. So if you get students to carry out this task, This could be done at the end of the lesson as a communicative task. And this is, in my opinion, a communicative task. Is a task that has clear context. So you know why you're having the conversation, with whom you're having the conversation, and where you're having this conversation, right? So this is a communicative activity in my point of view. So you can use this task to finish the class or to start the class in a task-based approach. Now, if we say that language is context dependent, if we change the context, we have to change the language. Let's look at it from this way. What if you're reporting the car crash, but not to a police officer, but to a friend? The language you're going to use changes, right? You're still at the police station, right? So it's not entirely informal, but it's a bit more relaxed. Maybe you're not going to be very descriptive, as descriptive as you would be with a police officer. And the chunks you might use will change. Maybe you can swear, right? I can't believe that, and it's always the other driver's fault, right? we're always like Lewis Hamilton, and the other driver is like the other, right? So if you're reporting the car crash to a friend, you change the language. If you're reporting the car crash to a friend at a bar, you change the language. And if you change the purpose for complaining about a car crash to a friend at a bar, you have a completely different activity. You have a completely different context with completely different language. You change the whole thing because you decide to change the context. And after that, you can drink a lot to forget the situation. Yes, I don't think I can encourage you to drink, but that's what some would do. Definitely. You can increase the volume. Yeah, you change, and you even change like paralinguistic features. You be more. There will be more gesturing, more body language. Maybe you want to be funny, right? Maybe you want to make your friends laugh, right? Maybe you want to amuse people. Yeah? Yes, don't drive afterwards. Definitely. So you see why context is so important, because based on context, and if you play with context, you get out of one activity, you can build many others. Because if you change one of the perninhas ali do context, you change the language that students will use. So you get a brand new activity, a brand new communicative activity, using pretty much the same rationale. You're just moving here and there, but then you change the language, right? And we'll see how this relates to the other two pillars of learner engagement. The other one is aims. Having clear aims for a lesson and for the activities in the lesson will help engage your students in the class, because they will understand why they're doing what they're doing, right? I don't know where this came from, or if this is just a misconception I had of the communicative approach some years ago, that I thought that it was a good idea to hide the aim of the lesson from my students. As in, I would teach the lesson and they would learn something in the lesson, but it would be so inductively that they would just learn the language. And I don't know why I thought of that and why I did that for quite some time, but in my experience, sharing with students the aim of the lesson helps a lot. And it's very andragogical, it's very adult friendly. If you're teaching adults, telling your adult students why they're doing what they're doing and what the aim of the lesson is at the beginning of the lesson, so that when you get to the end, you can go back and say, hey, look, do you see the aims we set beforehand? Did we get there? to what extent did we get to this aim, right? So that you hold students accountable of their learning process as well. Because if you're the only one who knows the aim of the lesson, you're the sole responsible for this lesson, because students don't know where they're going. You're sailing the ship with your crew, and your crew has no idea whatsoever why they're doing what they're doing and where they're going. Right? It's pretty much like Alice in Wonderland when she meets the cat in the woods, like she's absolutely lost, and she sees the cat and she asks, paraphrasing, "Which way should I go?" And the cat asks, "Where are you going?" And she says, "Well, I don't know." And then the cat answers, "Well, anyway would do then." Because if you don't have a clear goal, if you don't have a place that you're aiming at, do whatever. It doesn't make a difference. Right? So knowing, for the teacher, knowing the aim of the lesson helps you design the tasks that will lead your students there, and sharing this aim with students will hold students accountable to, yes, the teacher is, let's say, the one at the wheel. Maybe it's not, in my opinion, but more of like a good co-pilot. But the students know what they're doing, why they're doing, and there is a sense of purpose in that. I'm not doing this activity because my teacher wants me to do this activity. We're going somewhere with this, right? And I see that, oh, so this is the end goal of the lesson, so I understand why there is this vocabulary activity. I understand why there's this grammar activity, because if I put the vocabulary and the grammar activity together, I will be better able to do this at the end, right? However, we get to the point of um, uh, delving deeper into what makes a good aim good, right? So what is a good aim? What are the good aspects of a good aim? Can you share in, okay, they're clear. Yes, so let's go along with Andrea. What makes a good aim good? They're clear, they're simple. Coffee? They're achievable, yes, very important, right? You cannot write an aim of going to them. They're useful. I love that idea. They have to be useful. So yeah, I think I have nothing to add. That's it. um, let's see an example then. So we're back to that context. We're going to use the context we were talking about beforehand. Reporting a car crash to a police officer at the police station. Okay, and then teacher wrote this aim: students should be able to use the simple past and the past continuous. What is, in my opinion, the key issue with this aim? This aim is dull. Nobody wants to learn the present simple and the simple past and the past continuous. Right? It's not fun. It's not useful. It's not interesting. Right? People don't want to learn the present perfect. They want to be able to share life-changing experiences with their friends. Does it also, there is this idea that students should be able to use the simple past. So you are disregarding any prior knowledge the students may have, right? Because you're saying that they're not able to use the simple past and past continuous, and that in this lesson, you're going to teach them how, right? So I think it's not achievable. I think it's vague, right? So you're teaching simple past and past continuous in one lesson. right? From scratch, students know nothing. It's not very Freirean, is it? Let's tweak it a little and see how we can make this better. Students should be able to talk about past events. You see, this aim sounds a bit better, but it's still a little bit blurred, right? So there is a more practical approach to the aim, right? So students are going to talk about past events. This is more useful, right? This is a bit more communicative, right? So you're talking about the use of the language and the purpose of using this language, right? So you're getting closer to that, but still they should be able, you're disregarding students, why people write that sentence. That's CELTA. CELTA is this Cambridge course for new teachers, for development of teachers, and they always use this by the end of the lesson. And I think it's a nice framework to start thinking of writing good aims. But then I would add this little phrase there. Students should be better able to action, right? So in the sense that the aim focuses entirely on what students will be better able to do at the end of the lesson, by the end of the lesson, right? So you're focusing on being better able because you have the assumption that students already know some of what you intend to teach them. And you're going to not to use the present, the past simple or the past continuous, and definitely not learn the past simple or the past continuous, but you want to report an accident to a police officer, right? So if you look at this aim, a good aim will help you design a good lesson. Because if you have an aim such as students should be able to use the simple past and past continuous, when I look at this aim, I don't know about you, but I get the picture of a grammar book. Exercise 1, a grammar box with simple past versus past continuous. And then exercise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fill in the gaps. 1, fill in the gaps with simple past. 2, fill in the gaps with past continuous. 3, fill in the gaps with one of them. And then maybe 4, writing a complete sentence using simple past and past continuous. And the last exercise, talking pairs about something that happened, right? This is what I see when I look at this. If you get this aim though, it's easier to see students at the end of the lesson reporting an accident in a role play in pairs to a police officer. So if you have a good aim, you already have the final task of your lesson, right? You already have the final activity that will help you assess to which extent students were able to reach that goal. Because if your aim is to get students to be better able to report an accident to a police officer, this is the final task. Students will role play reporting an accident to a police officer. And after this interaction in pairs, you will take notes and you'll be able to assess, and students will be able to assess whether or not they achieved the goal. And then you can go back. So, hey, so this was the goal of the lesson. How do you feel about it? How do you feel you can do this better next time? Do you want to do this again? Do you want to give it another shot? And this is the next pillar of learning engagement, in my opinion, retrials. Giving students the chance to try again. And it means pretty much that it's, I had this feeling that I was designing a lesson And then when you get to the end of the lesson, you have this communicative task. And then after the communicative task, you're monitoring, you're taking notes, and then you give students feedback on their production, right? You say, oh, so you did this, and that, correct, very good, do this more often, right? So this is a C1 language, this is C2, this is very low frequency, a super low frequency expression. Use this more often, it will make your English sound more sophisticated. And then let's correct some mistakes. So this, and that is incorrect. How do you do this? You elicit correction, you give students feedback and say, okay, so you made this, and that mistake. Thank you very much, goodbye, go home. And I always feel like, wow. It's just like, I had this colleague once saying, Igor, he said that it feels just like, imagine you're going to the gym and you're doing like these insane amount of repetition series, like you're doing this exercise and your coach is watching you do it. And then after 30 repetitions, he pats you on the back and he says, well, okay, good, you did all those wrong, I'll see you tomorrow. That would be so frustrating. So the idea here is that we don't do that anymore. I used to do that a lot. So is that if you're giving students feedback on mistakes, so you're doing this wrong, this is how you should do it, I believe you should give students another try so that you can leave the classroom feeling with this feeling of self-efficacy. So I did it once, my teacher gave me feedback, and I did it again, but I did it better. I've seen teachers, when I presented this idea for the first time for a group of teachers, they're like, but aren't students going to be bored of doing the same activity twice? And in my experience, and this is in my experience only, okay, mind you, they don't, because there is clearly a goal, a purpose, a clear aim for doing this task again. And what you get is that if you, okay, so students report a car crash to a police officer, right, in this role play. Students carry out the task, you take notes, and then after they finish, you give them feedback. You elicit correction, they see what they did right, do it more often, they see what they did wrong, try doing it this, and that way. Now, change pairs and repeat the task. When you repeat the task, the main focus of students is not on meaning anymore, because they have already conveyed the meaning the first time, right? They have already reported the car crash to the police officer. The aim of the second attempt automatically becomes complexity and accuracy. So the first time you do the activity, students are focusing on conveying the meaning the best way they can, right? The second time around, meaning is not the main goal anymore, because it was already done, it's already done, but now students want to do that they did, but better. So you're pushing students in this demand high philosophy, right? And even if students do everything right, but asking them to repeat the task again after feedback. So say there is only a positive feedback. So very good, this is accurate, this is accurate, this is low frequency, this sounds sophisticated, good job. Let's do it again, but let's do it better. How can we do this better? And elicit from students. This works wonders with advanced learners because they're able to self-assess. And then they think about what they did and they say, oh, teacher, if I do this or that, maybe I can use the passive voice to, I don't know, maybe to distance myself from the fact, or maybe I can use the present simple instead of the past simple to make my report of the crash more vivid and bring the interlocutor closer to me. Because if I report it in the present simple, it seems that the action is happening right now. And the idea of retrials is pretty much that, reflecting on the learner. Yes, this idea of self-assessing and designing the next steps for development, right? This is a good strategy to push students out of the intermediate plateau. You know, when students get to the intermediate level and they feel that they're not developing anymore, maybe this retrial thing with a feedback session in between is what students need. So what you will have is a very simple task cycle. You get students to do the task. You give them feedback. You tell them what they did right, what they did wrong, how to do better, right? So it's feedback and feed forward, right? The idea that I'm not only looking at what you did, but I'm also keeping an eye out on what you're going to do so that this is improved. And then you set students on task again. They do the same task, and you give them feedback again. I think 3 times is overkill. But I know that repeating the task once is super fine. If by any chance you feel your students are going to be a bit bored of repeating the same task, change the context a bit. So remember when we talked about context and we had like reporting the car crash to a police officer at the police station, change the police officer for a friend. And then get students to do the same task again. This can be useful if students perform the task the first time to outstanding standards, but you want them to do this better, but maybe not better, but maybe in a different context. Change the context a bit. So now, folks, that you have reported the car crash to the police officer, you're going to report the car crash to a friend. How is your language going to change? What do you have to adapt? What can you use from the first interaction? What can you not use, or what you should not use for the second try? Yeah, maybe a different point of view. Yeah, but again, in my experience, students have never complained of repeating the task, right? So maybe give it a try. And we get to our wrap up. I was much faster than I intended to. Okay, it's 33 minutes so far. So let's go back to context. Yeah, context is a 3-legged animal. Which are the 3 parts of context? Use the chat, just so that we can wrap this up. It's because I've been having coffee. I'm accelerated. Purpose, people, and place. Brilliant. Language is context dependent, context embedded. If you change the context, you change the language. Use it to your advantage. Goals. What makes a good aim good? Use the chat. Okay, they're useful. So they focus on the use of the language and not on knowledge about the language. It's related to the real world. It is clear. There is a very important key aspect of a good aim. In my opinion, they take into account what students already know, right? So I wouldn't draw an aim for a lesson without taking into account what my students might already know on the topic, right? Because students have access to internet, video games, Instagram, TikTok, and they will see, they will probably have seen the language you're trying to teach them. So they know something about it. They've seen it before, right? It's very rare that you get a group of students in which you're teaching, you name it, inversions, and students have never seen it before, right? Respect the repertoires, definitely. Definitely. It's a +1 lesson. +1 lesson, Shirley, you're talking about the I+1 thing, perhaps, or like Krashen's I+1. So the idea that it's what students already know, but a bit more, right? Yeah, prior knowledge. So respect students' prior knowledge. Again, against banking education, right? We're not depositing knowledge, we're building on prior knowledge every time. And the third one, retrials. Keep it simple. First task, take notes, give students feedback, try again so you can do it better. This time, focus on not making the same mistakes, focus on using more complex language, change the context a bit, right? So yes, when they do, definitely, and especially if you're, and this can be like a teaching, say, methodology. You have a lead in to get students in the context of the lesson, and then you have the first task. You give students feedback, you teach them a bit, like, oh, you need this, you need that, maybe some controlled, some practice controlled activity, and then you repeat the same task and you give them feedback again, right? So maybe this could be the structure of a class, right? Lead in, task, feedback with a bit of teaching, task again, feedback, way to go, right? So it's easy to see development from A to B. If students feel comfortable with it, record them, ask them to record themselves so that they can listen to how they did the task the first time, and then give themselves feedback in the group, and then try it again, but try and doing it better. Record the second attempt, listen, and compare both attempts. It's visible learning. It's visible progress, right? Super works. And it's beautiful when students do that, especially adult learners. Adult learners love doing that. I've been teaching my father, and my dad loves this kind of activities, like doing it once, recording, doing it twice, recording again, and comparing, right? Um, and folks, this is what I had to show you. Any questions? If you click the link on, I don't know where it shows on your screen. I feel like a YouTuber now. If you click the button that is probably here on Explode Troika, this is a link tree with Troika's website and a couple of things that you might find, I hope you find useful. And the last link is the link to download the slides if you want to see it, if you want the slides for you. Any questions? What do you use to design your slides? PowerPoint. Yeah. PowerPoint and lots of hours. Thank you, Christian. Yes. Oh yeah, so thank you, Thomas. So no questions. So thank you, everyone. And oh, I hope it was useful, Sandra. I hope I did not waste your time. So people, thank you very much for being here. Stay safe. Oh, we got questions. Do you think we should always tell students the objective of the lesson? Adult students, yes. Teenagers, yes. Young learners, maybe. I've had a teacher in one of my sessions saying that she would tell their young learners the aims of the lesson and that it worked wonders. I have no experience in telling the aims of the lessons to young learners. So I do not have personal empirical evidence on that, but I hear it works. You would just have to fine tune the aim so that the kids know and they understand the aim of the lesson, right? However, if you go through, for example, National Geographic learning material, you see that the aims of the unit are described in the unit opener. So I believe this might be a good idea. Mhm. Do you have some tips for teachers improving their practices? Okay, yes, I do. Well, coming to these webinars, I love Scott Thornbury's blog. Very interesting. If you have the time and the money to pay for CELTA, I think CELTA is a fantastic course. It was for me, at least. Um, Join a teacher community, BRAZ-TESOL. There are Troika, that we got a teacher community, and some reflective teaching. Like whenever you do something in class and it works wonders, stop to think after the lesson, why did it work? Or if it didn't work, why did it not work? And then try it again next class or with another group to see what happens. A bit more scientific approach to your teaching, right? It's not this didn't work. I'm sorry. No, but just look at it and try to tweak it so that it works better next time. Mhm. Can you give us some recommendation of books or articles so we can explore these subjects more? Okay, these subjects tricky. Well, on retrials and contextualize and aims, I think that the general books, they're quite good for that. Harmer's How to Teach English will probably cover all three topics. Learning teaching or learner teaching from Jim Scrivener will also be useful for this. I guess Penny Ur's uh, language language development course, teacher development course, something like that might have some information on that too. Braut, yes, Braut is also a huge community. Um, yeah, I think this is it. Everybody, thank you for your time, and I'll see you again soon. Hopefully, face to face. Right? Goodbye. Thank you. See ya.